All right, so good afternoon, everyone. We have on the conference call with us, we've got Tracy Begood from Chair Becker LLP. They're our auditors. They're hired by the city in a joint contract. And so we're excited to have everybody here today. We've got lots to share with everybody, so I'm going to jump right in and turn it over to Tracy.
Hopefully I've unmuted myself. I hope everyone's doing well this afternoon. I'm pleased to be here.
Mute,
I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Tracy,
wonderful.
you're on mute.
I'm able, are you all able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Can't hear you, Tracy.
Let's see. Let me see if I can send a quick message or something. Are you able to hear me now, Wendy?
Can anyone else hear Tracy?
Can anyone hear Tracy?
We
I
can.
can. We can.
We can.
Yep.
Be that way.
Turn your volume up, Wendy, on the projector or on the Chromebox.
Mr. Littlefield, we can't hear
Tracy.
we can't hear anybody.
No, we didn't hear from anybody. Hello? There's Tracy in the chat.
Yeah, no. She said everyone can hear except for us.
Oh, I hate this.
Let's see.
So then, yeah, I hate this. How do we get rid of this
At
thing?
the bottom of the right hand corner. Yeah, the little keyboard, the little keyboard symbol. Right there.
That one?
Yeah.
Jeez. Right, so I don't see why it's not allowing it. We're on. Trying to see if there's something else I could go.
Okay. White remote, volume on the projector.
There should be a volume up button.
On the Epson projector itself, it just has the
The volume up.
page. Okay. Oh yeah, we have volume. We're good
We don't play
there.
volume.
All right, make sure the volume on the Chromebox is turned up, lower right-hand corner. There's a volume setting.
On the Chromebox itself.
Actually, Wendy can do it with the mouse.
Lower right-hand corner. Because we got the Zoom screen up, it's not, do we have to leave, click on exit full screen for a second, Wendy?
No, just, it's supposed to be.
Okay, and then you said bottom right-hand corner. All right. Yep.
Someone's turned that off.
All right, Tracy, can you talk now for us?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now we can, yes ma'am, thank you.
Sorry. Didn't mean to blow you out of the room.
I'm trying to get that board in there. Okay, that's better.
Someone had muted all of our stuff, so.
Ah,
Okay.
okay, hi.
Wonderful. So I just wanted to say I'm pleased to be here this afternoon. As you all know, we've conducted several audits, and I'm Tracy Bedgood. I'm the Senior Audit Manager over all of the engagements that we do for the school district. I just kind of want to briefly go through the different engagements that we actually have conducted for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020, and go over those results with you. So as part of the contract with the city of Suffolk as well as schools, have really three different engagements that we're involved in. The first one is the financial audit, and that is of the financial statements of the schools that is presented as a component unit in the comprehensive annual financial report that the city of Suffolk presents in December. Now, the schools is included in that, so their financials as far as the regular operations of the school would be included in that. And as part of that audit, we issue 3 separate reports. So the first report that we issue is on the financial statements themselves. It basically says that items have been fairly tested, that they are presented materially correct in the financial statements themselves. As a result of that particular audit report, we had unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, no issues noted there. And then also with the second report that we issue is on the compliance with any laws and regulations. Now, this would include the laws and regulations for the Auditor of Public Accounts. They have separate audit specifications that we're required to test as part of that audit. Again, the schools did not have any findings or any exceptions as a result of that testing. So unmodified, clean opinion for that as well. The third item is our audit of the single audit funds, or the federal funds that are received and presented on the schedule of federal expenditures at the rear part of the CAFR. And again, we did not have any findings related to the expending of those federal awards for the fiscal year 20. So as far as the regular audit, we had across the board clean, unmodified opinions. If there were any items that came to our attention that would have resulted in any internal control deficiencies, such as significant deficiencies involving your internal control, we would be required to report those to you, but I am pleased to report that none of those issues, we have none of those significant deficiencies or anything to report for this year.
Right.
Now, moving on to the second engagement that we have is the VRS examination. So as part of the Auditor of Public Accounts specifications, we're required to do an examination over the census data that's provided to the Virginia retirement system. So we do that for schools as well as the city. And so the schools did not have any findings to report to the Auditor of Public Accounts as a result of that examination either. The third and final item is the school activity funds. So we do conduct a separate audit of the school activity funds for the receipts and disbursements at the individual schools. And we issue one audit report on the financial statements themselves for that. And we did not have any findings that were significant, deficiencies in internal control or anything like that. And we have issued a clean opinion on that as well. So, your report card looks good. All of the different engagements that we were involved in for the fiscal year 20, no issues noted, no significant findings to be reported. And I will just tell you that, as we all know, this year has been a bit of a challenge. There was no real change in what we audited or our procedures that we audited, but there was a change in the environment that we're in, obviously. So as part of our audit, our firm was actually very, I guess we were very lucky in that most of our work is able to be done electronically. So we were able to have virtual meetings. We were able to obtain information electronically through our Smart Sheet, which is a secure portal that we use. And we did, go on site if we needed to, but for obvious reasons, that remote environment was really the majority of our audit for this year. So I just wanted to assure you that, the audit procedures and our process did not change. It was just the format that we were having to do it in this year. And, I was pleased that it kind of went off without a hitch. So everyone, I want to just thank Wendy and Hilda and all of the staff for being so accommodative for our requests.
All right, thank you, Tracy. Do you have any questions?
No, we just want to say thank you and
Thank
thank
you.
you for the
Yeah.
team. Thank you so much, Tracy. This is
Thank
wonderful
you.
news for us. We're always excited to hear good news. And in this vein, of course, this area is a wonderful area to hear good news in. We're very pleased with that. I do have one question, Wendy. Of course, the other members of the board will present this report in February. Is that correct?
Yeah, we generally don't present unless the board wants us to. We normally just give it as information.
That's what I mean. It'll be on an information item for other board members.
Yes, ma'am.
And because this presentation is public and it's being streamed live right now, so everyone can see it.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you so much. We really do appreciate this. Thank you, Tracy and Wendy and your team.
All
Ms.
right.
Ms. Byram, did you have any comments you want to make?
I'd just like to also commend Wendy and Hilda and the team. They do an excellent job. Our finance department has always done an excellent job, and we continue to see that. I'm well pleased, like Dr. Buck said, and I think the other board members will be as well. Thank you.
All right. Well, moving on to the review of the financial statements, I'm going to share the screen with you. I've got a presentation that we're going to do. All right. So I wanted this year to take a little time to discuss the financial statements and help everyone understand kind of what's in them, where they are, where they're found, so that we can all understand a little bit more about them each year as we move forward. They are fairly complicated, but I'm going to try to break it down in easy terms so that people can understand. So there are two places in the city's comprehensive annual report where the school division has quite a few items. One is the required supplementary information, and the other is the school division's financial statements. Those are the fund financial statements. We also have government-wide. We're involved in the government-wide, but you can't really see the school division separately in that section. But these two sections, you can really see what the school division's doing. So in the required supplementary information section, you have information beginning on Exhibit 17 that talks about our other post-employment benefits. And I've listed here our fiduciary net position of that fund. And you can see here that we have been more than 100% funded since 2017, which is good news, because if the plan was not fully funded, it would impact the city's financial statements by showing an obligation, which is called a liability, for the unfunded portion. In addition, since 2017, we have not had to contribute any cash to fund the plan, which means that we've been able to save that budget for other items. So we currently, what's called cash fund, and that's in quotes there, what we do is we pay as we go for retiree claims each week as part of our overall health benefits claims. So we pay them out of our operating funds cash every single week as we pay those claims. We don't charge them to the fund because that would take us underfunded. And we don't have to contribute to the fund because we're at 100% or better. On Exhibit 18 of the scheduled contributions, you can see that the actuary report is prepared for Suffolk Public Schools every other year. Our last report was 2019, and while they update it for different GASB situations that we have to show different things on the report, our next actual actuary report is not until this current year. So the contributions that are showing on this Exhibit 18 show how much we gave to the fund, if you will, how much we paid for retiree claims, less collections in the last 3 years. And you can see here that we paid $449,551 more than the actuary said we had to in 2018, $464,846 more in 2019 than was required. And then in 2020, we paid $813,519 less than was required. And what that is it's contribution fluctuation based on the retiree claims, and then the premiums that we collect from the state. So we had a couple of really good years where the claims for retirees were lower, and with what we collected from the retirees and the state and paid out in claims, we had a surplus. But then in 2020, we had a poor year, if you will, where we had more claims. And so you can see that there's the $813,000 less than required. In any case, we're at the end of the day, we're still 100% funded.
Okay.
So in exhibits 22, 23, 24, and 26, again, all found in the required information, supplementary information in the CAFR, you can see different information from the Virginia retirement system. This comes directly from them. Suffolk Public Schools doesn't really have a whole lot to do with this because this is the state's reporting of Suffolk Public Schools' share of group life, the retiree health care credit, the local disability program under the hybrid retiree program. And it shows the contributions made, what were the liabilities, and what were the differences. So you can see that on these different schedules. And again, all this comes directly from the state. So Suffolk Public Schools doesn't produce its own comprehensive annual financial report, or CAFR, as Tracy referred to it, mainly because we're a mid-sized school division, and we don't really have the staffing that allows us to produce our own CAFR and meet all the other obligations of the department at the same time. But we are considered a discrete component unit of the city, and that just means that they have to report us in their financial statements. They have to report us the same way they report all other funds. So all the information exists, it just exists under the city's CAFR. The statements include all these statements, and these statements, I'll go over each section of these statements. So I just want you to see there's quite a few statements here that show all of our activity funds and all of our operating grants fund and food nutrition services funds. So exhibit 39, the very first one in that one that's under the discrete units, has the column showing the operating fund, the grants fund, the school food services fund, and then a total of all school board funds. And there are three sections here. Assets, which are things we own, cash, inventories, those kind of things. Liabilities, what we owe, accounts payable, what's owed to other governments like the city, those kinds of things. And then what's called a fund balance, what is set aside or obligated. Now, I know you've heard me say to the school board many times, we're not allowed to carry over fund balance, and that is very true. But what is obligated, we are allowed to carry over. And then certain reserves we're allowed to carry over because they're part of what other people say we're going to owe.
Right.
So for an example, the assets section of this exhibit 39 shows in the school operating fund column that due from other funds is $1.1 million. If you look to the right in the next column, you'll see under the school grant funds, due to other funds, that exact same number. Okay, so what that means is we were owed money from the grants fund to the operating fund at year end when we took the picture. Okay, it's just a prime example of how they all interact together. Okay, another example is the liability section. In the school operating fund column, you'll see due to primary government of $3.2 million. That is exactly the amount we asked the city to reappropriate for this fiscal. And year end, when we take the picture, we have to show that that money is due back until such time as the city council reappropriates it to us. So again, we're allowed to carry forward specific and obligated funds at year end. Non-spendable items such as inventories for janitorial supplies, paper, and prepaid items, which in this case are deposits, reserve funds for upcoming claims payable that have not yet been received from workers' comp or health insurance, and then any encumbrances for goods and services that were obligated but weren't received by June 30th. We're allowed to carry those forward, and that's the three things that make up what's called the fund balance. Now, before everybody gets excited about how much cash we have, because that $26 million looks really nice and big, This is an example. This is not exactly how it's paid out because this is not a cash flow statement. But basically what I want you to understand is of that $26 million, we have $1.5 million in accounts payables on that same statement. We owed summer pay and accrued leave at an amount of $17.7 million. And then encumbrances or obligations that we had already obligated at year end, but not yet paid or received of $5.6 million. So really, there's only about a $1.1 million balance there. That $26 million is real nice if you look at it by itself. This is not a cash flow statement, so please don't take this as anything but an example of what kind of things come out of that cash at the time we take the picture. We don't have everything there. We paid the summer payroll out over the course of the summer. So you can see that we don't have $26 million in cash. So in Exhibit 40, it's the combining statements of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, which shows you the change from year to year in those three items I just described. It shows total revenues and total expenses as well. The columns again show the operating fund, the grants fund, and the food services fund, and then a total. So the revenue is by source on this particular exhibit, and then you have total expenditures. It does not detail out the expenditures by program. It doesn't detail them out by any other means that we normally report to the state. It just does a total for the expenditures. And then any transfers in or out of that particular fund into another fund that we have. And again, you can see it's the same number that went out of the operating fund into the grant fund. And then finally, what is the fund balance? What is set aside or obligated? And the difference between July 1 of 2019 and June 30 of 2020 becomes the net change in fund balance. And again, that's fluctuations in prepaids that we have to do for deposits on workman's comp and health insurance. It's fluctuations in the inventory that we have from one year to the next, as well as fluctuations in our encumbrances from one year to the next. So in Exhibit 40, you'll see the operating fund revenue was $148 million. Expenditures were $148 million, about $478,000 difference, less the transfer to the grants fund, because again, we have to transfer the match money for grants over to that fund in order to spend it, and we have to show that separately, for a net change in fund balance last year of $317,126. And again, that number represents only the change in those prepaids, the inventory, and the encumbrances from year to year. The grants fund had revenue of $9.1 million, expenditures of $9 million for a difference of $69,000. Plus that transfer in, you can see it's exactly the same number, and then a net change in their fund balance of $230,851. And finally, the food services fund, you can see here the difference between revenue and expense, and a negative difference, which then has the negative in the fund balance. Food services generally relies on their fund balance year to year to make up their expenditures. They have a nice healthy balance. They're allowed to carry that balance forward, but we have to make a plan when they get more than 2 months of fund balance put there. And so last year we purchased some equipment, much needed equipment for them under Dr. Lawrence in order to spend that down a little bit to get it to the proper level. There's also on the bottom of these statements a reconciliation to the government-wide financial statements that includes things like pension expense, payroll accruals for compensated absences, things like our fixed assets, things like that, things that we don't put on a fund statement, but if you looked at the government-wide statements in the front where the cities included us, those things would be included in those statements. There's also a budgetary reconciliation schedule, Exhibit 41. So for each school board fund, it shows the revenues budgeted, the expenses budgeted, changes in the fund balance, and again, just shows you what was budgeted first, then what was changed, and what the final becomes. In there, you'll see this huge $10 million number, which took me by surprise too for a minute, but I realized after I looked at it that it includes things that are not part of a specific budget, and I'll tell you why. Encumbrances at year end are held aside in fund balance. And then what happens is, because they're not part of a new budget, they're rolled into a new budget in the new year and expended. The same thing at the next year end. So they're not part of the budget, the approved budget. They're part of things that roll from year to year. So in 19, we had the approval to spend this 5.3 million, but in 20, while we had the approval to spend it, it becomes a budgetary item because it rolls over in budget only, and then we spend it. So it works, it's not part of the base budget, which is why it's done separately here in that column, which gives you the differences here. And the amount unspent encumbrances of that 5.3 million, we had 43,000 unspent, which about drove me crazy because I don't like to have any unspent. We had 43,356 unspent for a total of 10.9 million. Then Exhibit 42 shows the revenues, expenditures, and change in fund balance, budget to actual, and it's on a non-GAAP budgetary basis. Non-GAAP just means non-generally accepted accounting principles basis. And it shows again, revenues, expenditures, other financing sources, and the net change in the fund balance. And then it shows original budget, final budget, actual received or spent, and the variance with that final budget. And you can see here the revenue versus the expenditure, the difference, the transfer out, and the change in fund balance that I showed you before of $317,126. So everything ticks and ties back to one another if you know what to look for. Then finally, the statements of fiduciary position, which is the other post-employment benefits that we talked about earlier, and then the school activity funds. So the first exhibit, Exhibit 44, is the other post-employment benefits. Then 45 is your changes in assets and liabilities of your activity funds. And I'm not going to go into detail on these because these fluctuate year to year. Fiduciary funds means we are holding them for others. So these are collected for the children and they're to be used by the schools for the kids. We cannot pull that money back and use it for government activities. It is for the schools. We are holding it for someone else.
So what, Ms. Ford,
Yes, ma'am.
these would be our band candy and football tickets and ticket gates and whatever that the kids have collected, or PTA,
Yes,
PTA funds and that kind of thing.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any questions on anything I've given you? All right. Well, we'll move on. I put on the next thing, the new minimum wage effects for Suffolk Public Schools. We are under new minimum wage requirements as of May 1st. We will have to go to $9.50 an hour. We did not make this part of the budget because we were unsure what the General Assembly was going to do this year with COVID and all the issues with revenue. We are still unsure what they're going to do, but I felt like it was important enough that they might keep it exactly the way it is for you to understand what this may do to us May 1st. So May 1st, we have the following groups who would be under that, under $9.50 an hour, and we would have to adjust their pay to $9.50 an hour. Our substitute bus aides, our substitute teacher assistants, our substitute cafeteria, and our substitute custodians all are under $9.50 an hour. Not a lot, but they are, and we would have to bring them to minimum wage. And only for the months of May and June in this fiscal year. Now, obviously, we move forward, but for this fiscal year, it would only affect May and June. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, make you aware that we're aware and we know what we need to do in May or by May for these folks. And we'll be bringing that more to the school board once we know what the General Assembly is going to do.
Do we know how much that is, or do we have a general idea of how much we're talking about?
For the 2 months, we weren't even talking $100,000. It was very small, which is why we didn't include it in budget last year, because we just, again, weren't sure what the General Assembly was going to do with it this year given COVID.
Okay, okay.
And it's less than $1 an hour for one group and about 50 cents an hour for another group. So it's not a lot of money.
Okay.
All right. The next thing I have, I just need to add to the budget because it's come up since we sent everything out, is we have CARES Act 2, which I'll talk about further later, but as part of what could happen on our expenses for the operating fund, we have an opportunity with CARES Act 2 money to purchase some ionization units for the HVAC systems to the tune of about $1.4 million. It's absolutely allowed under the CARES Act 2, but we got to do the application. We've got to get it approved. We got to go through a process that could take 3 to 4 weeks after we come to the board with the plan to get all that taken care of. The vendor has said to us, if we wait that long to obligate it, that we will have to stand in line behind lots of other school divisions, and it will be at least 6 months before they can start. If I obligate it up front in the operating fund without budget, and then move it to the CARES Act once all that's approved, then he could start and be done within 6 to 8 weeks. And so we just wanted to alert you that we're going to be doing some jockeying around while we do this, and let you know that we absolutely know that everything will be approved. We just are going to have to do it in a way so that we can move forward earlier rather than later.
Okay.
And Dr. Buck and Ms. Barham, this is going to be a high priority item for us. We already have this in Florence Bowser and Colonel Fred Cherry, since they are two of our newer schools.
Two of our newer schools. Uh-huh.
Right.
This will be an additional layer of mitigation strategy, not only for the coronavirus, but for any other viruses. This filtering system is a must need, which is part of the reason why Ms. Forsman is mentioning this to you all now, as this is something we want to hop on immediately so that we can get the installation done before this school year is over.
Oh, absolutely. And can we, or should we, or do we need to, is this something, I realize this is public, but is this something that we're going to move ahead with it under one thing when we change it over? Do you need, what can we do to support that? Or do you need us to do something to support this?
Well,
Do you need the board to do something to support?
Understand that it's going to take some time because of timing to have the application to the board approved, then sent to the state, have the state approve it. If we wait that long, we will lose this opportunity.
Right. That's what I was saying. Is there anything that we need to do? Do we need to have a special meeting? Do we need to do something to support you all in this?
I don't think so. I think as long as everyone understands what we're doing and why we're doing it, that we're okay. We're not trying to do a budget amendment. I'm not doing any of those things because it is going to move onto the CARES Act money the minute it's approved.
Okay. All
I
right.
just have to be able, kind of like last year where we had to pay the vendor because the city didn't go out for the bonds kind of thing, and then we got our reimbursement. We know we're going to get reimbursed. We know it's going to be approved on the CARES Act. It absolutely falls under the CARES Act, obligate what we can do on the CARES Act because it cleans the air of viruses. And so it really is something that falls completely under what they want us to use the CARES Act for. And if we wait, then we're saying we're not going to do it for at least 6 months. And we just feel strongly that it just shouldn't wait that long.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I was just wondering
agree.
if there was anything that we needed to do to help you all.
I can't think of anything, but we just wanted you to be aware.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is upcoming significant changes in the finance department. I will have been told informally that I will have several, more than 3 retirements next year. And so we have been preparing the last 2 years with a detailed cross-training plan and with key positions and what we need to do. But we wanted to make the Finance Committee aware of these changes that are upcoming and assure you that we have a plan in place to work our way through that and make sure that we don't end up with large holes that can't be filled in the finance department. But I didn't want to know that was going on.
Good.
All right. The CARES Act, there's an application. We'll be bringing this to the board more than likely, maybe February 11th. We're working towards that. If not, it may have to be March if we can't get everything nailed down. But some of the things that we plan to spend this on, just to give you some ideas, of course, device replacement, which is very expensive each year. Items that will help us with connectivity. Dr. Gordon has already been telling folks, so I'm going to say this, the interactive whiteboards in every classroom will happen. and we're working our way through those. We're looking at document cameras and other software and manipulatives, this ionization unit, water installation of hot water that's still needed in three schools' bathrooms will also happen, and then disinfecting supplies and equipment, because as you know, that's extremely expensive. This money has to be spent by September 30th of 2023. So it will carry us out a couple of years and help us continue with some of the software like Zoom and other software that we're using. So we're very excited to receive this money, but we've had to start putting plans in place of exactly how we're going to spend it. And that's what we'll be bringing to the board, is showing you which fiscal year it will end up being in and what exactly we'll be doing and why.
I have one other question. Dr. Gordon, you know, we spoke earlier. I know we're talking about the large filters for school. Will this take care of the need that we talked about for those classrooms with no windows?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
One of the things that we had already did, if you remember, Dr. Buck, we had already opened up our temperature dampers on the roof. It's now allowing 30 to 35% of fresh air in there, so that people didn't think they had to open the windows to get more fresh air, because it was already coming through our HVAC system. Now with this ionization, this will be an extra layer of filtration that will also help us with the mitigation strategies itself.
Okay. So for those rooms that do not have windows, that's going to help with the clean air in those schools.
Correct.
Okay.
The nice thing about these units, Terry and I've had several conversations, the very nice thing about these units is, as we replace HVAC systems on roofs, these units can be removed and put in the new systems.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're not going to have to repurchase as we move forward. We can just take the units out of the one and put them in the new. So that's
All right.
very exciting to be able to do. And this thing cleans all kinds of viruses out of the air, which is going to help us, I think, in the future with things like flu and other items. So, you know, it's a good thing. It's a very wonderful thing that we can do, and it's a great use of CARES Act money. The thing we've got to remember is, as always, there are strings on everything we get from the federal government. And what we've been told this week is we must spend CARES Act 1 money prior to CARES Act 2 money.
Sure.
So we're working to move that forward as quickly as possible so we can do these things.
And that's part of the reason why they've given us the 3-year window to September 30th, 2023, because they do want to give you time to spend your CARES Act 1 money. One of the main priorities that we've been looking at, besides determining what's going to go in our operational funds and what will be on our CARES Act 2 list, is sustainability. Even though we're hoping that we can get our kids back in school at any point in time, we're actually planning for the hybrid model to potentially also be in effect in the fall as well. So because of that, we wanted to try to make sure that things that we were going to purchase with this CARES Act 2 money will be sustainable for us as a school division for multiple years. The technology being the key. Ms. Forsman's had some conversations with me about some additional technology for audio, panoramic views, to be able to see the entire classroom, so that a teacher, hypothetically, that may have to teach both hybrid and virtual, could do so simultaneously as a part of our hybrid sync model. We really have taken the feedback that we've got from teachers in the comment section when we gave them our original survey to kind of help us drive what items we want to purchase, plus our normal safety items for mitigation, including more PPE, things of that nature. We want to be able to keep a stockpile of that. And one of the things that I'm sure that the board will remember from last year is part of the reason why we hopped on things very quickly is because of the supply and demand piece, to let it be wait. All the companies, the day after we were appropriated or informed that how much money we were getting, all the companies began to send emails to Mr. Hines, Ms. Forsman, and myself with their prices. And since then, some of those prices have now went up. So make sure that we're ordering things as quickly as possible, just so we can be very efficient with our money.
Absolutely.
Right. I know a lot of school systems around us have had difficulty. I won't name any names, but they didn't get ahead of the game, so to speak. And I'm glad that we're moving in that direction, because if we move quickly, we'll be at the top of the list.
Exactly, Ms. Burr. And that device replacement is something we want to be able to definitely take care of, just either in operational care as far as instructional assistants and other staff. That's one of the big items that Mr. Littlefield has been ordering, because trying to get Chromebooks and laptops is still very difficult, very similar to when we were trying to order buses and things of that nature. The backlog for a lot of these items has been 4 to 6 months out. And so we want to try to make sure that we are at the top of the list so we can have things basically done by September 1 on some of these items of this year.
And Dr. Gordon, I think that your thinking is correct and in line with what's going on in Virginia as well. Sometimes I think that people forget, before COVID, long before COVID, we made the demand that students take courses virtually in Virginia. There was a requirement for that. And as we've moved into COVID, everybody seems to be falling apart and forgetting that they made that a requirement for students. And it's like, now that it's virtual and it's a must that we have virtual courses, people have forgotten that they were requiring it anyway before it became something that we had to do. So I think the smart move is to go ahead and prepare for whatever we're going to have to do in the future. And so I think we're moving in the right direction in Suffolk. And I think Suffolk is leading in Virginia, leading in what we need to do. We're in the forefront of this issue, whatever may come. We're preparing for it.
I agree.
That's good.
And the board, having the insight to approve the virtual learning days, that's part of our pilot for it all. Our test model, very similar to what we're doing for Educate and Innovate right now. We think it'll get people used to it, and today was a prime example.
Absolutely.
Inclement weather, we still can move forward with instruction. Realistically, inclement weather days, unless there's a safety issue or a power outage, inclement weather days should realistically go away for us. As long
Absolutely.
as we kind of have properly planned there, very similar to the teachers having emergency lesson plans, we're going to have some inclement weather day plans for virtual learning. Those are going to be some of the expectations that we will be working on this summer.
Excellent.
All right. So that's the CARES Act, and we will go before the entire board. We just wanted to give you a heads up of what direction we were looking and why, and some of the issues we're running into with the strings that are attached to this money and what we have to do. So the next item that we have on the agenda is the possible use of current savings to pay the remainder owed to Isle of Wight for the CCAP. As you know, in 2018, we went into an agreement with Isle of Wight where they withdrew from their portion of the Prudence Center. And we agreed at that time that we would pay once a year for 7 years, the amount of $222,264. We are now in year 4 of that. This year will be payment 4. And we're thinking that if we have some savings, we wanted to check with this committee and see what they thought. If we had some savings to try to pay that down a little sooner. So we really just want some feedback from you all of what you feel about that.
I'm thinking if we can, it would be a great idea. The sooner we can get rid of the debt, the better.
Right.
Okay.
It just makes
interest, but I feel like we get it off our back, it'd be one less thing in our budget that we have to deal with.
Right. May I ask a question?
Certainly.
How much did you say we're currently paying? Repeat that again.
Sure. $222,264 a year.
Okay. Thought I remembered correctly. Okay.
Yeah. We have about 890,000 at this point.
Okay. And we owe a remainder of how much?
890,000. And I'm not suggesting
809.
I'm not suggesting we pay all of that the first year out. But if I could pay it,
Right.
then I'd like to pay it down, but I wanted to check with you all first.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I would suggest that to the board, to the full board, if we're in a position to pay down the debt, it always makes sense to get it out of our way because we don't know what the future is going to bring. And if we can pay down the debt and get rid of it, the sooner we get rid of it, the better.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's really all I had, unless you have some other questions. I just want to take a minute and thank my staff. Hilda Harmon and Ty Carr doing an outstanding job of working with our bookkeepers and working with the audit firm and making sure everything goes smoothly with our audit. And I tell you all this all the time. I could not do it without the phenomenal staff that I have downstairs.
Well, we think, I know that I can tell you this, Mrs. Bowerman and I talk all the time about the staff that we have and how pleased we are with the staff that we have. And of course, I'll let her make her own comments, but I am always excited when I hear people say that our audits are clean and they've gone through the records and our bookkeepers in our schools are doing a great job. This is hard work that we do in schools and public schools all over the country. It takes a team effort. People like to take credit individually, but it takes a team effort to do the kind of work that we do, and to do it well and to come out with a clean audit. I'm just pleased with it, always pleased with it. And the work that you guys do. And we have a small team and a lot of work to do. And instead of complaining, you all just keep doing it and doing it well. So I am extremely pleased with what I see and what I hear in what you guys do. So just keep doing it. That's all I can say. Just keep doing what you're doing because it's right. And it's good and it works out for our community. And we appreciate you all. Ms. Bauer?
I think we actually, oh, go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say this ditto to what Dr. Buck said. The finance department, Ms. Forsman, of course, is the leader, but the team there is very important, and she knows that. She has, and I've seen this over the 12 years I've been on the board. I think Ms. Forsman has been here quite a while. She has seen this as well. We are understaffed in many times, when we work on things in the finance department, and I know that, but we continue to do an outstanding job. And that is because of their perseverance and determination to make things be as great as it can be. And I know Ms. Forsman is a good leader, and she has a lot of good people on her team. And I'm very thankful for that. And to hear that we have a clean report is the fruit of your labor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So congratulations to the team.
I couldn't agree more, Ms. Byram and Dr. Buck, with the work that budget and finance and, filtering all the way down to our bookkeepers, because the individual
Right.
funds and school activity funds, to have such a great report, a great audit lets you know that the training is working. One of the first things Ms. Forsman spoke to me about, because she had projected those upcoming potential retirements, her cross-training plan that she has amongst staff, which is we really have had to put into effect when we've had to quarantine people within budget and finance. The quarantine plan put into effect has been very successful. We have not missed a beat when it comes to payroll. All of our money has always been allocated properly. Our reports have always been efficient. They were very transparent. Everything that she does is always on our websites, always listed in the info section at our board meetings. I told Ms. Forden today when we were doing our mid-year review with the great review that I gave her for all of her hard work, that, it's always so good when you have someone that you can trust, but it also is on the same page with being innovative and creative and thinking about the long-term vision. I mean, we're not being reactive to anything that we're doing. Ms. Forsman already has it lined up for the needs that we're going to have as a school division for the next 3-4 years. And we try to basically prioritize of what we can do right now when we get additional sums of money from CARES Act as an example, what we can do right now so that our school division won't suffer. So I really appreciate the comments from you, Dr. Brooks-Buck, and you, Ms. Byram, really reinforcing the overall hard work from the budget and finance team, all of our bookkeepers, the entire staff, the work that they put in to make sure that we have these great reports. I just want to make sure it was not going to go unnoticed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
All right. Well, that's really all I have, unless you have other questions or comments. I appreciate your time, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.